Sounds good. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're gonna be going over a used RT Durango, and you guys always ask the year, so this particular one is a 2015 before we get into anything else. But first and foremost, a huge shout out and thank you to the Dodge Ram here in Provo for providing us with the Durango. Definitely check out their inventory in the link below, but let's get into it. So under the hood of the RT Durango, we have a naturally aspirated 5.7 liter V8 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 14 around town and then 22 on the highway, with power outputs being 360 horsepower and then 395 pound-feet of torque. Now, going over the front end of the Durango, you guys are gonna notice this looks a little bit different from the brand new Durangos that I have reviewed, and that's because they did not have the performance front fascia or performance hood for the RT package until the 2018 model year. So if you get a 2014 through 2017, it's gonna look like this for the front end. So you have the regular hood, but then they kind of do some body colored elements with the front, so like the grills body colored, bumpers body colored, all that kind of stuff. Or it's blacked out, so like the headlights that are blacked out, and they have some black accenting down below. So they go for like body colored blacked out look for the front end on the RTs. Now coming around the side here, we've got two 65mm tires and 20-inch wheels in the front and in the rear as well for your setup on those. Same thing as what you get from the factory, and then they do the mirrors body colored as well. And then here's just basically your side angle on the Durango. This will look identical to a brand new one from the side at least. Here's the key fob on the RT Durango. Notice that you have a couple functions. So you've got the unlock and lock at the top, remote start, and then the release for the hatch. If we press the remote start twice, that 5.7 V8 will come to life, so just wait for it. Sounds really good, doesn't it? Kind of has that like nice burly V8 sound to it. The next thing obviously is that hatch release, so just press that twice and it'll automatically open up. And with the RTs, this is standard equipment. Some of the other Durango trim packages, it's not like the SXT. This will actually lower that hatch back down, but even in 2015, you still got the extra storage under here, and then the back seats are still really easy to basically place, so you can just throw it down like that, and then when you want to pick it up, you just got to do that. And then notice that this actually has little earphones here in the back. You do get a 12 volt right there as well, but let's close her back up. Now coming here in the rear, I've got the lights on, and we have the sun in the perfect position so you can see what the taillights actually look like. They are full LEDs, and then notice that the badging is actually finished in chrome, which they kind of gone away from that. Now they do the badging in a blacked out look with the RTs. And then, by the way, if a Durango has a bulge back here like this, and you've got the bezel covering it, that's how you know it does have a tow package. If it doesn't have a tow package, it'll be flush with the bumper, just kind of like a pro tip right there. And by the way, you guys will notice it's certified as well. Coming to the side here, you guys will notice that the door panel hasn't changed all that much compared to the new ones. So you still get the leather here with the stitching, and they do kind of like the red contrasted stitching. Now the one difference with the seats is the new ones you can get the suede inserts on the seats, whereas in this part of the Durango lineup you could only get leather with the RTs, I should say, for this production run. This one does have a bench seat. You can get captain chairs as well, and then you guys will notice that the third row will always be the same no matter what you choose for the Durango. This one does have the entertainment system, so you got that little DVD setup there in the back. And if you guys are wondering, I'll pop in for just a second, and I keep hitting the camera on the ceiling right there. But I'm 5'11", and I've got a ton of headroom right here. Legroom is really solid as well. And then notice that I do get heated seats in the back, a couple USBs, a full power outlet, and some vents. And you can control the climate controls from the front. So yeah, that whole setup and everything is just like that. Coming to the front, we do get keyless entry, and notice that the door panel here in the front looks pretty much identical to what's in the rear. Beats sound system is what came with the RTs at this time period, and then you do get the little memory seat function right there, all of your window controls. And then notice the front seats, again, full leather, and it says RT just so you guys kind of remember what you're driving if you forgot for some reason. Your power adjustments are on the side of the seat, and that's what they look like. And then here's what the pedals look like in the RT. Your little light control right there, and then notice that you do get the paddles on the back of the steering wheel and the little radio controls as well. And there's everything before we pop in. Now let's start her up. So all we have to do is push the push start. That 5.7 Hemi will come to life, and so will everything else. Here's the steering wheel in the RT Durango. You guys will notice that this one just has the standard cruise control, no adaptive functionality. And then over there, that controls the center stack, and then you got the voice command phone controls. Again, there's those paddles from the front view. And then this is your windshield wiper stock over here, and also doubles as your turn signal stock. And well, that's everything for the steering wheel. Now here's the center gauge stack. You've got the RPMs over on the left side, and then it is a digital speedo. And remember, like I said, you can scroll through a couple different menus. The speedo will always be there at the top, but you can set it up so it's front and center like that. So if you want like a bigger version of it, you just go there for the speed section, and that's all for the center. Now coming over here to the infotainment system, we'll pop the backup camera on. And you guys will notice that the resolution on this camera is pretty close to what the new ones look like, so that hasn't changed that much. You will notice the infotainment system is a little bit different. So in 2018, they released a newer version for the Dodges, and so they got like a little bit better response time. The look of it was pretty similar, but again, the response time was a little bit better. Still get that headrest fold, which is pretty cool, so you can smack your kids in the back of the head. But other than that, the infotainment system just isn't as responsive as the newer ones, but the functionality on it is identical. Now down here we've got all of the climate controls, and you get a tri-zone climate. So you have the dual zone climate for the front, and then you have that climate in the rear I showed you. And yes, you can control the climate in the back from the front. So notice I can go to the rear climate section, and then I can lock it. So I don't want the passengers in the back to basically control the climate. I can just lock it, and you're good to go on that. And then down here, notice that you've got a little auxiliary and USB, and then a 12 volt just behind that. Couple cup holders in this little area, and then you've got the dial shifter for the transmission. Remember, it is an 8-speed automatic. If you do want to go in the manual mode, all you have to do is just press the paddles. If you want to go out of the manual mode, you just have to hold down the plus paddle for a second, and then it'll go back into automatic mode. You do get the low range, which would help if you're backing up a trailer or going off-roading, obviously. Center console here, which this is where you're going to put in the DVDs for the player in the back, and then you still get a little 12 volts right there. And then finally coming over here to the glove box, it is lined with felt, and you've got all of your owner's manuals in there, and that's all she wrote. Up top here, we do have the sunglass holder, and there's actually sunglasses in there, so I'm just gonna close that back up. Someone left something, but anyways, universal garage door opener, and you can get a regular sunroof. This one doesn't have it, but that's all they offer, no panoramic, and it's all for the top. Let's quickly get into pricing before we set off here in this RT Durango. So check their website for the most up-to-date pricing. Again, I'll include a link in the description down below, but this one is in the high 20s in terms of where it is priced at. It's 2015 with about 50,000 miles. Now, depending on the year that you get and how many miles, the price will vary, but the RTs in general hold their value really well. So even when they do have higher miles and they are a little bit of an older year, they still have a pretty good market value. The least expensive that I really see them go down to is the low 20s if they're really, really high miles. And if it's like almost brand new, even if it's like a fully loaded one, they'll still be in the high 30s, low 40s. Again, just depends on the exact spec on the vehicle. That all being said though, let's take this RT out and see how it drives. Let's quickly talk about visibility in this 2015 RT Durango before we set off. So visibility over the hood, the only difference between this and a brand new one is you just don't get the cool hood scoops to look at, but the visibility is the same. There's your visibility through the mirror. This particular one doesn't have blind spot monitoring. That is an option on the Durango. And then here's your visibility all throughout the rear. So a bunch of really big windows. In general, even though it's a longer vehicle, it's still pretty easy to see out of. That all being said though, let's set off. I'm initially setting off here in this RT Durango, and the first thing that I want to mention is just how similar this feels to a new one. Again, other than the exterior styling, everything else is so similar that if you like completely cleaned this up and just sat someone inside of it and then sat someone in a brand new one, chances are they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two. Now maybe that means that Dodge needs to release a new Durango finally, and apparently that will be coming soonish, but not as soon as what we would hope, obviously. It's usually how things are when new cars need to get released though. But the first thing I want to mention is about the sound insulation here with this Durango. So it's pretty windy down here today, and not a whole lot of wind noise is coming in, and honestly, I can't hear these cars going by, and hopefully you guys can see that. Well, you probably can't see it, but there's a flag behind me waving a lot, so it shows you that there is really a lot of wind noise. But yeah, these cars are driving by, and I can't hear them. All I can hear is the air conditioning that's on, because it's 99 degrees outside right now, literally, and that's nice. Taking our first turn here, the steering, it's probably in the middle. It's not the lightest steering, but it's not heavy by any means either. And the first thing I'm noticing about the ride quality is the RTs, you can definitely tell a difference in the suspension compared to a regular Durango. What I mean regular is like a Citadel or an SXT or a GT. They have definitely tuned the suspension to be a little bit firmer so that this kind of drives a little bit sportier. And so if you want kind of like a sportier ride, then definitely go for the RT. And yeah, it handles so well. Like, this doesn't drive big at all. Definitely does not feel like a large SUV. It drives like a smaller SUV. It's really good. I love it when SUVs can hide their weight like this particular one. And the one thing that I did forget to kind of mention the walk around that I want to mention right now while I'm driving it is the Durango does have a really good towing capacity in the RT package. So if you get a V6, which is not the RT, you can tow about 6,200 pounds. Now, if you get the RT, that bumps your towing capacity up to 7,400 pounds. And if you get this with the tow package from the factory, then it has the auto level rear air suspension. And so this not only is a third row SUV, but then it also is kind of like a truck. I mean, 7,400 pounds is a good amount, and the V8 will tow it effortlessly just because of the power that it has. So it will tow it way better than what like a V6 mini pickup truck would do. So like maybe a good example would be like a Ford Ranger, which actually doesn't even have a V6, it has a 4-cylinder. That might have a similar towing capacity, but a 4-cylinder just won't tow the same as a big V8 like this tows. And so definitely take that into account. And I am just brutally stuck in traffic. This is why I don't like driving down here in Provo, is like, there's just too many people. There's way too many people driving around down here. And yes, we finally have an opening, so we can get our acceleration here. Sounds good. So you guys know I love this Hemi, and if you're wondering, here in Utah I'm at about 4,000 to 4,500 feet depending on where I am in the valleys elevation wise, and it still feels super strong. So from a power delivery standpoint, it's solid. The sound is great, the transmission is really responsive, and so just like as an overall packaging, it's amazing. And let's get into summing things up now with the Durango. So again, if you're looking for a third row SUV that has kind of like this fun, sporty driving capability, that also has great towing capability, that's where the Durango really shines. And you get great towing capability, but you don't have to buy a big SUV like a Tahoe or a Suburban. And the other thing to mention, again, that I kind of mentioned earlier, is just where these are at in the market from a price standpoint. These have held their value pretty well, and so you won't lose a ton to depreciation. And the other factor to take into account other than the depreciation is the fact that they have depreciated enough that I feel like it's a reasonable price. The average brand new vehicle is about $38,000, $39,000 roughly, and most of these Durangos can be had from anywhere from about $25,000 to $35,000 for a used RT. So from a value standpoint, it's super solid. And so if you're in the market for that kind of vehicle, definitely look into a used RT. And there we have it, everyone, the used RT Durango, which I think is a great value to get. And again, they do hold their value really well. So again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Dodge Ram here in Provo for providing us with the Durango. Check out their inventory in the link below. I will see all of you in that next video.